Crosby, and you're listening to the Mean Joe Grizzly podcast.
Hey, it's Tom Matthews from Return of the Living Dead and Friday the 13th, Part 6, to name a few, and you're listening to the Mean Joe Grizzly podcast. Enjoy.
Hey guys, Tyler Mann here, and you're listening to the Mean Joe Grizzly podcast. Hi, I'm John Russo, screenwriter of Night of the Living Dead. Welcome to the Mean Joe Grizzly podcast. Enjoy.
Let me introduce myself. I'm Joe Grizzly, bitch.
What up, me Militia? I'm Mean Joe Grizzly, and when I'm not waiting ever patiently on a decent movie release, working on a new segment for y'all, or catching up on all things that I missed in 2023, I'm at the Grizzly Cave, watching movies, reading comics, listening to metal, and of course, crushing beers. And yeah, it's been a while, guys, and I do apologize for the brief hiatus, but I wasn't just hanging out and doing nothing this whole time. I've been working very diligently on several new segments and projects for YouTube and TikTok. One being Mean Joe's Monster Manual, my guide to monsters, slashers, aliens, mythical beasts, and much, much more from all forms of media. And that will be releasing first on YouTube on Valentine's Day, and then periodically on TikTok after. The first episode is about our favorite miner, Harry Warden, from My Bloody Valentine. So make sure y'all go to my YouTube channel, subscribe, and watch it when it releases. I really think y'all enjoy it. I just hope that YouTube doesn't yank it down after all the hard work I put into it. So hopefully if it does, everything will be fine. But if not, I'll pivot and I will figure it out. But moving on, I will finally be integrating metal into my brand. It will start out as social media posts, reels of reviews, fun facts, and other stuff, and then I will be working my way up to a full series on the history of heavy music. From metal and hard rock's conception, to the formation of legendary bands, to the creation of many, many subgenres. This is one of my many passions, and I can't wait to talk to y'all about it. That will be starting more than likely in March, so make sure you follow the socials and my YouTube channel to see that content. And finally, I'm planning on moving Mean Joe Video as well as the Grizzly Guide to YouTube as well. Now, all of that depends on if YouTube is going to be fair and not remove my content. I've been spending a lot of time researching and navigating the many rules of YouTube, so hopefully I've covered everything well enough to avoid all of that nonsense. But if not, I will once again pivot and figure it out. The podcast will continue, but the volume might decrease. That's to be determined. But all of this is pretty exciting for the brand. I hope all of y'all will continue to join me on this journey. So make sure y'all check the links in the description and subscribe to my YouTube channel now so you don't miss any of that content that's coming y'all's way. Now, with that little state of the podcast out of the way, the other reason I've been on a hiatus is because other than a few releases on Shudder, Monarch Legacy of Monsters, and some animation I got caught up on, there hasn't been anything good to talk about so far this year, guys. I have some short review cards up of a few things on the socials for like Suitable Flesh, Destroy All Neighbors, Monarch Legacy of Monsters, The Fall of the House of Usher, Scavenger's Reign, Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2, Masters of the Universe Revolution, and Echo. Some of it is great. Some of it is just okay. But as far as major releases, it's been pretty damn awful. Night Swim and ISS were pretty terrible. But the two films I'm about to talk about were very enjoyable. and I'm of course talking about the prehistoric period piece thriller Out of Darkness and the 80s theme horror rom-com Lisa Frankenstein. So let's get started. This is Grizzly Grade Reviews. When a group of early humans arrive in a new land to settle, their new paradise is transformed into a nightmare when something in the darkness begins picking them off one by one. So, I love the concept of a horror film being set in the prehistoric era. When I seen the trailer for this, I was like, ooh, this is going to be awesome. Like, a caveman horror movie? And it didn't look like just completely ridiculous. It actually looked very well conceived and just had like a good structure to it. I was like, I'm not going to say I was jumping around for joy when I seen this trailer, but I was like, man, this is really interesting. I'm really excited about it. And then I went and seen the movie, and it's still pretty good, but let's just say I'm a little bit disappointed. But let's move on. So starting out, the filming location was absolutely breathtakingly beautiful. They could not have found a better place to film. I have no idea where they filmed this at. It looks probably like it's like in New Zealand or somewhere in that area, or somewhere maybe in Eastern Europe. But it just looks very... It looks very primitive in landscape, and that actually adds to the film because it kind of makes you feel like you're in the same shoes as the early man that has landed here to settle. You kind of just feel like you're on that journey with them. There's not much violence, but there is a couple of scenes that are damn horrific. Like, there is one scene in particular where I'm not even gonna lie, if I would have seen this in real life, I would have legitimately just hurled right there. I just threw up right there because it was so freaking gruesome and not really unexpected, but it cuts to it and you see it and you're like, wow, that's disgusting. So there wasn't like a big gore fest, but there were some scenes that were very horrific. And moving on, the acting and the performances are pretty solid. And this is a film that it has a fake language. It's not, the language isn't a real language, at least not to my knowledge. It's all a language that was made for this film. Again, at least to my knowledge, and they do a good job of conveying emotion through this language, and you don't feel like that you're lost the whole time because they do a good job of conveying all of that emotion. The atmosphere is very, very spooky, just like I was talking about with the sets, or rather, better yet, the location that they used to film. Everything looks very dreary, looks very, very spooky looking. There's a lot of fog, a lot of smoke from thermal vents. There's a forest that looks downright creepy, and I'd never set foot in it. It's just, they did a really good job of making it a very hostile looking environment at places while also being very beautiful. There's also some very, very, very good scenes that build a lot of tension. The building up to this scene, the group of prehistoric men are being snatched in the darkness by some unknown force, whether it be some kind of prehistoric beast or some kind of supernatural entity. Something is grabbing them and taking them away. And there is a scene where the group has somewhat hunted down whatever it is that is taking them, and they realize that they have made a huge mistake and they're trying to get the hell out of this forest, and the sun is steadily going down, and there's literally a point where one of the prehistoric men is trying desperately to light this fire and get some kind of light, because whatever it is, it fears the light and it thrives in the darkness. And he's sitting there and he's trying, like, he's banging on this flint trying to get this fire to strike. And that scene was so damn tense, because you just felt like, quote, the claws reaching around the necks of these prehistoric men. It was very, very tense, and I loved that scene. That's probably my favorite scene in the entire movie. And now we're going to move on to the negatives. I was very, very, very disappointed with the big reveal of what was actually hunting them and snatching them in the darkness and stuff. And quite frankly, if I tell you, it will spoil the film, and I'm not going to do that because I want people to see this movie. But let's just say it felt very, very lazy to me, and very uninspiring, and just not creative at all. I really, really wanted it to be something so much more than what it turned out to be. And this goes hand in hand with the reveal. Is the ending, it just didn't do anything for me. The reveal leads to the ending and kind of wraps it up in this weird, like, artsy bow, where it has a message, and it was very blatant once you see the reveal. And I know I sound like I'm rambling, but I just really don't want to spoil this movie for anybody, because I do think it's a good movie. But I was just very disappointed with the reveal, and it led to a disappointing ending. And I don't know if it was because of budget constraints, or if the director and the writer just wanted to be all artsy-fartsy about it and have this real positive or uplifting message, or a cautionary message or whatnot. But it just didn't work for me. And this movie is the definition of a slow burn. So if slow burns are not your thing, you're not going to enjoy this movie. So just keep that in mind. But Out of Darkness, it's a thrilling prehistoric period piece that has great tension, breathtaking filming locations, good performances, and some great gore at times. But the big reveal is a crushing letdown, and it leads to a very lackluster ending. But all in all, it's a good watch, just not a great one. Out of Darkness gets a 3.25 out of 5, and is Grizzly grade guaranteed. Check it out in theaters today. And now we're going to move on to Lisa Frankenstein. Outcast oddball Lisa spends most of her days hanging out at a desecrated graveyard in the woods, writing dark poems, and being consistently harassed by her stepmother and peers. But all that changes when lightning strikes a grave and resurrects her new friend, companion, and partner in crime. I had a lot of fun with this movie. I took my wife to go see it for our date night and really enjoyed it. All the performances in this movie are great. Catherine Newton, she is slowly turning into the new teen horror idol like Winona Ryder and others before her. She's just been good in everything that I've seen her in, from Freaky to Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania to now this movie where she's the lead once again. Cole Sprouse, who plays the undead bachelor, he does a great job, and he has almost zero vocals in this movie, and yet you felt his every emotion through his facial expressions and his like grunts and stuff. It was a pretty impressive job. I was very impressed with that kid. Carla Gugino absolutely was great as the bitchy stepmom. I like her in almost everything she does too. She's like Mike Flanagan's muse. She's in almost every one of his movies, and she's great in all of them. Very good makeup effects and costumes. They really nailed the 80s look, and the makeup effects for the Undead Bachelor were very well done. Love all the atmosphere was very 80s, and I love all of the colorful like neon lights everywhere and stuff. That made for a very beautiful shots and stuff. And they did a good job of capturing that 80s atmosphere without being overzealous and just smacking you in the face with 80s stuff constantly. They did a very subtle job of it where it obviously hit home that you were in the 80s. Didn't know this until right before I went and seen the movie. Robin Williams' daughter, Zelda Williams, was directing this movie, and she did a pretty good job, I must say. Had no idea she was a director. Good for her. Love her dad's work, and I hope she goes on to do good things, and whether she continues to be a director or if she does anything else. Like the 80s music they chose in this movie. They didn't choose, your insert random like hit 80s song. They were actually putting in some that they don't use very often, and I thought that was a pretty good like relief and breath of fresh air when it comes to 80s themed movies and their soundtracks. And there's some pretty decent comedy throughout this movie. I find myself chuckling a few times, which is very rare because sometimes this new generation humor just is lost on me, and that's just me being the cranky old man. The story is well written, and I believe it's written by Diablo Cody. I think she's the same one that did Juno, and she did Jennifer's Body. She did pretty good in this one. It has the same dark but whimsical feel as the Tim Burton films, and I'm pretty sure that's 100% what they were going for. It's got that teen angst combined with the gothic atmosphere and all the goth tropes for goth girls and stuff like that. And all that is done so well, and it just kind of pushes forward that this is going to become a instant cult classic in the same vein as Edward Scissorhands. In fact, I would go as far as to say that this is this generation's Edward Scissorhands. That's the best way that I can describe this film. Moving on to the glaring negative that I have with this film is I don't know what the message of this film is supposed to be. And to explain that in great detail would spoil this movie for you. So I don't really want to spoil it again, just like with Out of Darkness. I don't want to spoil this movie for you. I want y'all to go see it. But so let's just say that if the trailer promises you a love at first sight romance between the goth girl and the undead bachelor, then that's not delivered until much later. It's very much an up and down game of morality and other teenage mishaps throughout this movie. And these are not necessarily bad things, but I feel that it could have been structured better and in turn given us a clear message and conclusion to what Diablo Cody and Zelda Williams were trying to convey, whatever message they were trying to convey in this movie. Because I can tell you right now, I have no idea what their message was. And it doesn't ruin the movie, but that is definitely its biggest, glaring problem. There are times where the movie feels like it drags. And I don't know if that has to do with how they structured the movie, just like I was saying before. But it felt like sometimes the scenes were not edited, so they kept all the filler in the scene, so the scene just went on forever. I don't know if that was intentional or if that's really what happened or what. but it kind of feels that way. So towards the end of the first act, throughout the middle act, it does drag quite a bit sometimes. And I know that sounds contradicting, but it'll drag for about 5 minutes, and then it'll speed up, and then it'll drag for 5 minutes, and it'll speed. It's just very inconsistent with the pacing. And finally, this movie, although I enjoyed it, it's not made for me. Its target audience is very clear, which is why I took my wife to go see it on our date night. But even though the audience is definitely defined and what they want, who they are actually targeting for this movie, it's a very niche group it's looking for. And my wife did enjoy it, but she felt the same way that I did about the movie, and that it does have pacing issues, and that she wasn't the target audience. And I think that that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it does limit this movie. But it also is a strength for it, because with that niche audience, it's going to definitely elevate this movie to a cult classic status, which is something I already touched on in the positives. So, although there are some slow moments, an unclear message, and a very specific target audience, Lisa Frankenstein manages to be a very enjoyable watch, with great performances, good makeup effects, good sets, and a good Tim Burton-esque feel that will no doubt elevate this film to instant cult classic status. Lisa Frankenstein gets a 3.75 out of 5 and is Grizzly grade guaranteed. It's in theaters now, so take your lady, guys, or ladies, get your man to take you to see it this Valentine's Day. And with that, we bring another episode to an end. Thank you all so much for your continued support. Without y'all, the show isn't possible. If you like this episode, please consider subscribing to the show wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget to click the links in the description below to follow me on all social media platforms. Make sure you check out Carl Casey at White Bat Audio. He's the guy who does the music for my intros, outros, and throughout the episode. Guy is phenomenal. He is a synthwave master. So give that guy a shot. Wednesday, please, if you don't get anything out of this episode, please go to my YouTube page. The link is in the description. And follow me and subscribe to me on YouTube. Hit the little bell so you don't miss anything, because this Wednesday on Valentine's Day, I am dropping the very first episode of Mean Joe's Monster Manual. And you guys are not going to want to miss it, especially you slasher fans, and even more especially you My Bloody Valentine fans. So make sure you guys don't miss that. Worked really hard on that, and I hope that y'all enjoy. Got a few more things coming out in February as far as releases go. Don't know which ones I'm going to cover yet. There's a big month coming up with March with Godzilla. It's called The New Empire. I believe Dune 2 comes out that month. It's going to be crazy. So just stay tuned. Thank you all so much for the continued support. Without y'all, the show isn't possible. You have no idea how much y'all mean to me. Again, please don't forget to follow me on YouTube. Make sure you watch the Monster Manual episode. And remember, I'm Joe Grizzly, bitch.